All right, YouTube. I need your help in a very serious matter. Explain to me. Explain it to me. What am I looking at here? This pizza is blue. Make it make sense. I beg you. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU, here for another Legacy video, and we are playing what Anubis called Self-Destruction Black today. So, the overall idea here is that we can potentially cheat something like a Death Shadow into play after aggressively lowering our own life total with things like Eumidian Hatchery and my Scornful Striker. This is using this same aggressive core that we have seen in a handful of recent videos with the 3 1-mana black creatures supplemented by Super Shredder. I'm going to make a couple changes to this deck list before we play it. Number one, I'm going to cut Prismatic Vista. So when you see Prismatic Vista, you know that your opponent is primarily on basic lands, and that would indicate that we are probably a mono black deck. I'm just going to sub this for some other fetch land. So we'll pretend that we could maybe be another color combination and grab Verdant Catacombs. Showing off Prismatic Vista might also indicate that we do not have a Surveil land as well. As far as the main deck goes, this is the biggest thing that I want to do. I suspect that the 4th Super Shredder is probably just correct, despite the fact that it is a legendary creature. So I'm going to make that flip-flop. With this many baubles and lotus petals, Super Shredder is just going to be cracked. The other thing that I'm going to do is adjust the sideboard. So originally, in the first draft of this deck, it was also a Dark Depths deck, and the idea was that you could rip the counters off of Moonshadow with Vampire Hexmage. If you take a look at the main deck here, we don't actually have real removal for opposing creatures, which seems like a pretty big flaw. So I would like to get a couple copies of Fatal Push into the sideboard, and potentially a Shoulder's Edict or Snuff Out as well. Let's maybe go 2 Fatal Push. Is Snuff Out still fine if we're trying to run a few copies of Eumidian Hatchery? Maybe not. I also want to put one more Death Shadow into the deck somewhere. Our payoff for Eumidian Hatchery is kind of light. It basically requires us to wasteland our own land, which seems a little sus to me. But if we're going to do this, I think we should be playing a couple more of these. I'm going to pop 1 extra into the sideboard here. And then I think this deck has overloaded on Graveyard Hate. And I think it's probably playing the wrong Graveyard Hate. I think we want Leyline of the Void as the thing that is probably going to be best versus Oops All spells, despite the fact that Fairy Macabre has obvious synergy with Moonshadow and is potentially a castable creature as well. So let's go do 4 Leyline of the Voids to round this out. And this is still just too much Graveyard Hate. We probably need to hedge against some other combo decks like Storm and Show and Tell. Fairy Macabre technically does things there. We could also do something like Null Rod for the artifact decks. I also don't hate Toxic Deluge as something for the energy decks. And there is also just like Barrogoyf, because Barrogoyf is Barrogoyf. And Orcish Bowmasters as well as things that I could think about that might be fine versus combo. What if we have 6 pieces of Graveyard Hate for turn 1 and then round out the board with, let's say, 2 Toxic Deluges to just have something that can say no to energy or the tokens out of an affinity style deck? 1 Barrogoyf? 1 Bowmaster's better for the anti-combo focus. I could see 1 Bowmaster's being better. All right. Now, Feed the Swarm is something that can be a removal spell for creatures, but honestly, this is in the deck primarily to help us deal with Leyline of the Void, which is pretty good against a bunch of our scaling creatures. So this one is still in draft stage. So there's probably some further particulars here that could be honed further, and we might be missing an answer to something. I know, for example, that our deck will be soft to a weird card like Ensnaring Bridge, but that's just kind of the place of mono black decks, so I think we will just live with that. And I will hop into the league here. We'll see how consistent Death's Shadow is. We'll see whether or not 3 Wastelands and 3 Eumidian Hatcheries lines up appropriately. And we'll get a feel for the details. If you need any cards to round out your decks, please consider shopping from toamagic.com. You're going to get good customer service and fast shipping. Did I have to recently order a card from another website? I did. I ordered that on the same day as my TOA package. My TOA package has been here for 2 weeks. I'm still waiting on the other card. TOA is great. With that being said, let's battle. Are you ready to play a non-game versus Oops All Spells? Note that in the dark, it is 100% correct to lead on Moonshadow here. I'm thought-seizing my opponent. I'm just not in the mood to lose to Oops if my opponent is just mulliganing towards an I win button. Alright, it is not Oops, it is Show and Tell. We will be taking the Show and Tell. My opponent has time to rebuild, and out of fear of Oops... What happened to my controls here? Alright, there they go. Anyway, out of fear of Oops, I miss a significant portion of damage because Moonshadow does not get to attack immediately. Cool format! Alright, 1 Delta down, 1 Ponder down. I would really like to draw another black land so that I can play Moonshadow and Nethergoyf. I think I play Moonshadow here. I don't want this in play before I dump a decent portion of the rest of my hand. So, this is a random card in your hand. Let's yield to that. That's presumably the same Flooded Strand, and then Force of Will. Alright, I'll take some redraws. Alright, I've lined up Eumidian Hatchery and Wasteland, but this is perhaps not the matchup where that's going to be great. Opponent kept their cards. That's not awesome. Alright, I will get a Lotus Petal into play. I think I just want to put another card into my graveyard here. There's a Swamp. I think I'm going to go ahead and do this. Alright, that is a Force of Will, exiling a Force of Will. A Force of Will. Sure. The Moonshadow grows, and then I'm going to go ahead and do this like this. So I can hit or lethal over 2 attack steps. So I don't need to think about like wastelanding my opponent's fetch land or anything to grow this further. So this is fine. We'll potentially put some pressure on a Surveil land here. Opponent down to 11. Ooh, that is a hedge maze. A Ponder probably puts my opponent in a bad spot because I have lethal on board versus Show and Tell. All right, cool. I have almost nothing for this matchup in the sideboard. This is something that I talked about respecting more, and then I didn't respect it more. I think we're just hoping that the fast clock, backed by a Thoughtseize, gets there. I technically could mess around with this, and it wouldn't be crazy if my opponent is the Allurin build to do so. I don't know if I want to do that. I think I'm just going to try to aggro my opponent down. An aggressive creature, a Thoughtseize, and a Hate Bear is an okay recipe. This is kind of whatever. I think I can do better than the Stalker. Not without any lands, I can't. And is 1 land away from being bananas. Let's go to 5. All right. Yeah. All right. Opponent mold to 5. I mold to 5 back. Not the greatest place in the world to be. Opponent keeps their card. Lotus Petal means that Veil of Summer is live to counter a Thoughtseize, and I kind of hate that. I think I'm going to very reluctantly Thoughtseize on 1, which is made worse by the fact that my opponent topped with this card. Stock up. My top card was Show and Tell. Haha. Will feel bad. All right. Reordain. That was bottom. Fantastic. How do we feel about this? I think no. There's a Moonshadow. I will now fetch, and this will scale up not only Moonshadow, but also the Stalker. And we'll just assume that Nethergoyf will get a little bigger over the course of this game somewhere. It's not guaranteed, though. My deck is very creature land artifact heavy. I guess I have the... Ooh. Okay. So yeah. Yeah. Fire in with the menace creatures. How much damage do I have on board? 2, 4, 6, 7, plus a little bit more potentially from a top deck that scales up Moonshadow. My opponent's just flooding out. Doesn't feel like this should be going this well for me. That artifact is worth like 3 points of damage, right? So I look at your top card that grows Super Shredder and Moonshadow immediately. What is that? Oh, it's a Sararak. Hate that. While also putting the artifact in the graveyard for Nethergoyf. I get a redraw. There's a bauble. I certainly have lethal. Does my opponent continue to flood out? They continued to flood out. I mean, I'll take it. It does not feel like I did too much to deserve that in terms of like tactics or strategy. I took a stock up and my opponent just kind of whiffed fully. GG. Today's video is sponsored by moxfield.com. If you're looking to store your decks online, you're not going to find a better website. It's super organized and easy to use, and I sort everything that I do into a ton of format-specific folders, and you can customize the way that you use Moxfield to your liking. Whether you like text views or visual views of multiple different natures, Moxfield has it all. And it's so easy to use, you might even say that it's a snap. So something that's a little weird here is that when I don't have the Moonshadow and Super Shredder type cards, the baubles are not synergistic with some portions of the deck. This will still grow a Nethershadow later on. Sorry, a Nethergoyf later on. Nethershadow. Nethershadow in Legacy. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? That reference was super niche, even for the standards of this channel. Alright, what you doing over there? We have been paired against a bad ham, playing Island. Let's see what the rest is looking like. Thoughts? All right. Why did opponent not just like snap Force of Will? That they have Show and Tell plus Giant Fatty there. I mean, I'll take it. I will absolutely take the fuck out of your Show and Tell. Thank you. Okay, there's the aforementioned Nethergoyf, which is pretty cool. You may ponder, and they keep their card. Death's Shadow. Not currently castable. I'm not sure which of these two cards ends up goldfishing faster. I'm going to play the Douthie Voidwalker. Alright, opponent is just not interested in using or even thinking about the card Force of Will. Scalding Tarn. Going for a Thundering Falls. My Wasteland is now on. Saying no, and doing a sorcery speed Brainstorm. That is presumably playing around Orcish Bowmasters. Was it better to do this in a different order so that you Brainstorm and then fetch? They have some information from before from the Ponder. That may not actually be the case. I'll leave some other zones out here that might be useful. Opponent is now thinking about Force of Will on Moonshadow. Declines. I think at this stage, I go ahead and Wasteland the Thundering Falls because now it grows Moonshadow. Throw down another Nethergoyf. Send in for 3. I probably have a 2-turn clock here. I have 8 damage showing. Opponent ponders and keeps their stuff. All right. I play this. I do damage to myself. I only take 2 from it. That doesn't get me to Death's Shadow. Okay. Do this. Do this. The Force of Will now happens. Growing Moonshadow. There is now a Force of Will with a Void counter on it. I think I'm doing this. It's a little weird looking. This is not an error. So Lotus Petal goes to graveyard. Death Shadow. Oh no, Death Shadow dies and goes to graveyard. I now grow Moonshadow. I'm just going to send in these two creatures, leaving back Douthie for Force of Will. So there's opponent to 5. Ancient Tomb. There's Show and Tell. I'm going to attempt to counter this, which will grow my Moonshadow, and attempt to counter Show and Tell. And I know one of those cards is Mistrise Village, I believe, so I don't think it can be the perfects. Alright, GG. I wonder if my opponent had room to finesse that one better. It's a little hard to say for sure without seeing their hand. Alright, I'm in for this. Our opponent has shown us red this time, which means that sneak attack is more of a thing here. So I'm going to think about Feed the Swarm. I could like drop Death Shadow and 2 Street Wraiths, and that would be a reasonable way to feed the Swarm. I don't think Feed the Swarm is super good here. I know that the scoreboard is fine. I don't feel good about the Show and Tell matchups. Opening hand is a little more mana heavy than I would like. I think I will just keep something that has Thoughtseize. I have very limited interaction versus my opponent. It's mostly Thoughtseize, and to a lesser extent like Wasteland and the Hate Bears. I'm just going to call this good. Ooh. I will lead on a turn 1 Thoughtseize, which potentially just prompts a Brainstorm, but I'll just try again next turn, and hopefully that's fine. I'm fueled entirely by matcha today. That's where we're at in life. Brotherhood's End. I will take the stock up there. Now let's see what my opponent put back. I guess for this exact situation, I could have put the bauble into play first and had information about what the top card was. They hit a Force of Will. That seems like a weird thing to hide. All right. Like, surely you just hide that stock up, right? Because it's very, very good. So my opponent ponders. So the top card of their library right now could either be something that they wanted to hide, or could be a card that they wanted to shuffle away with this ponder. Let's cross that out. There is the Ancient Tomb. Stalker this turn. Thoughtseize then Stalker. Sure. Alright. Thoughtseize you. So I am fine taking the Atraxa, which also shuts off the Force of Will. So as soon as I fetch, Nethergoyf is a 3/4, which means that Brotherhood's End does not kill it. I could just play out the thing that is immune to Brotherhood's End, or I can try to make my opponent blow their Spirit Guide on Brotherhood's End. Both, I think, are reasonable strategies. I think I'm going to try to make them blow their Spirit Guide. And I fetched, so this scales up. Alright. Oh, it is Sneak Attack. That is rather unfortunate. So I know what my opponent's rocking over there. It is a Force of Will and a Sweeper that is not really sweeping. So I now play my Nethergoyf. I've already descended. I don't need to do that again. So if my opponent doesn't hit a red source this turn, this card doesn't do anything anymore versus my board. An extra land is not what I'm looking for. Well, fuck me, I guess. Yep. No Bowmaster to punish. There's another red source. Yep. This is currently 14 of my 15 points of life, and then that's Lotus Petal Emrakul. Alright, that does it. GG. We get another game to try again. Okay, this opening hand is very aggressive. It does not have a piece of discard, so I am hoping to just murder my opponent before they assemble their stuff. I think I bauble on turn 2 when it grows the most creatures at the same time. I suppose I can put it here in case there is some emergency situation where I feel like I need to draw in the middle of my opponent's turn. I don't really intend on doing that. Scalding Tarn. Fetch a Valk for me. Yeah. Very nice. Opponent declines. Oh my god, that's so much Moonshadow, and I'm so here for it. Seems like opponent is considering countering. Doesn't. I'm totally fine wastelanding my opponent to set them back here. This also just grows 2 Moonshadows at the same time, so it's big game. See what's going on for my opponent. A Ponder, sure. So it is turn 2. My Moonshadow is attacking for 3. Next turn, I'm attacking for 8, at least. And my opponent will be dead the turn after that. You'll love to see it. Ooh. Is it possible for me to kill my opponent next turn? Like, can that happen off these resources? What if I draw a Wasteland and Wasteland myself or something? Super Shredder. So, yeah. I think I will just beat a Show and Tell in creature just with Menace here. It seems to me like my opponent has a Force of Will and is considering using it here. They don't. I think I am fine with attempting a Super Shredder. It occurs. I will now fetch. Increase my power of all 3 Menace creatures. Let's always yield to this as well. Pick up this. This one scales immediately. Well, not literally immediately. It scales at end of turn. So this is 10 damage immediately. And we lose to something like Ancient Tomb, Show and Tell, Omniscience, Emrakul, as I have exactly 6 permanents, and I can't win on the swing back. There's the first part. There's the second part. That's not good enough. I believe that we win. Every single one of these creatures has Menace, and none of those cards are Lotus Petal. Nice 7/7 lifelink blocker, yo. GG? Yeah. Yeah, opponent had an Emrakul. Wasn't good enough. Just for giggles. Just for giggles. Thought sees you. I'll take the Show and Tell. I'll go to 14. Quad! Nope. Nope. Nope, nope. We win! We're winning! We're winning matchups I don't think we should be winning. We'll take it. GG's. Alright. Opening hand is gonna be shredding something. Is it gonna be a third fucking Show and Tell deck in a row? God damn it. Alright. Everybody be cool. It's fine. Yeah? 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 We shred? Alright. Red Friend is here. I think I put Thoughtseize on the stack now. And let's just yield to Shredder. 8 that. That's pitching a Fire Ice. It could be Rhino combo instead. Show me a card in your hand. No, I guess I saw Atraxa. It's Show and Tell. Alright, there's an Emrakul there. What else you got? Yggdrasil, Rebirth Engine. Alright. Cycle this for some life. Can't play Stalker this turn. I mean, it's turn 1 and I have a 4/4 Menace in play that's going to get bigger, and I have 2 redraws. Ooh, Wasteland's very good if I don't just die this turn. Alright. Ponder is mana that does not kill me immediately. Does this X out the graveyards when it enters? What an unfortunate surveil in that case. Oh, the Ancient Tomb. Opponent not playing this out immediately? That means that I can murk that Ancient Tomb. So here is a Moonshadow. There is a Wasteland. I will take out your Ancient Tomb in an attempt to bottleneck you on mana. Here is Bauble. Take a look over there. Oh, what is that? Weird lag burst there. Cards jumping around a little bit. Sneak attack as well. Okay. In for 7 with Shredder. Opponent is at 12. I have 10 damage on board. So that's 11. This grows Shredder. This is 11 now. This is now lethal damage. It wasn't a second ago. Ooh, an ETB tapped land. Maybe not gonna do it here. I think my opponent just died. I guess I play this. In? Yeah, opponent just died on turn 3. If we beat this deck again, that I think we have a bad matchup against. Either I'm wrong about the fact that we have a bad matchup, or I need to put, this deck is the Sneak Attack Slayer in the thumbnail or some shit. Alright. Hello, friends. Welcome back. Been a little while. Shadow's out. 2 Street Wraiths out. Deck's perfect. I'm not really sure what I should have for this matchup. Is it 2 mana Pithing Needle? That makes things more expensive. Not Sorcerer Spyglass. Disruptor Flute. Hand's fine. It has Thoughtseize. Double Eumidian Hatchery is perhaps not ideal. Flooded Strand and pass the turn. I honestly don't hate that. My body is ready for this brainstorm. Yeah. Off a snow-covered island. What the fuck? What a wild assortment of cards to see. So is there a show and tell on top? Is kind of the question. My opponent's hand is, I think, objectively pretty bad. If there is not a show and tell or like stock up on top of library. Mindbreak Trap and Stifle are pretty damn niche. Part of me wants to risk it and just take the Force of Will. With the hand being that bad, if you've got everything, you can potentially just Force of Will here. I think I'm still just going to take the Atraxa, and I will let my opponent use like Force of Will Stifle or Force of Will Mindbreak Trap on one of my creatures. So, yeah. And we'll just play around the Mindbreak Trap that I know about by playing Orcish Bowmasters on my opponent's turn. I'm so incredibly upset right now. Yep. So there is the fetch. And a Hedge Maze. Saying no to Sneak Attack. There's another regular land drop. 3rd mana. Alright. I'm just going to take this opportunity to cast a spell. The Atraxa is unfortunately in the graveyard since I took that earlier. So that is potentially problematic. Moonshadow. Alright. Yeah. I'm just eating a little damage here. This maybe just gets countered. Itching and Omniscience. Okay. Rose Moonshadow. In for some damage. This is unfortunate. I know that my opponent has the land to make this happen. This has not lined up well for me. So there's Atraxa. And then my opponent can end up with like Show and Tell, Omniscience, Emrakul. I'll need to deal 14 to them. I don't know that I can deal 14 to them. And there's Veil of Summer. I can't Thoughtseize to get rid of that. Alright. This seems like it is over. I will continue operating as if it is not. Oops. I was meant to do this on my turn so that I could have a redraw for Show and Tell. Alright. At that point, my opponent's got it. Just for giggles, what would I have drawn with the bauble? Was it relevant? It was not relevant. Alright, GG. We get to try one more time here. I don't think I like this opening hand. The Nethergoyf isn't actually all that aggressive here. This one's probably fine. I think the Stalker goes back. I'll just take the random redraw here. Moonshadow is interesting. I think I'm just jamming Douthie on one. It has black pips that are kind of inconvenient if I don't cast it quickly. Alright, opponent says no. I probably wasteland my opponent given the opportunity to, although they're kind of a crazy oddball running Stifle, so it's a little weird. I think I just Moonshadow here and pass turn. I do think I do this in upkeep. Yeah. There's an Ancient Tomb fetch with Delta, growing Moonshadow. I will Bowmasters, and I'm just doing this so that if it gets countered, Moonshadow grows immediately. And in for 3 points of damage. Opponent to 15. That's a Show and Tell. It's Omniscience. It's Atraxa. It is not 10 lands. There's an Emrakul as well. Sort of humorously, we could do the Emrakul attack and make a handful of tokens, but that's not going to beat the giant lifelinker and the Emrakul body there. This is more how I expected this match to go on average. I don't know if my opponent should be playing Stifle in their deck, because like they ended up with like the weird like Stifle Mindbreak Trap hands, but scoreboard, it worked. GG's. All right. I have an excellent 5-card hand right now that becomes a 7-card hand if I draw another black mana source. I'm going to just lead on the Moonshadow. I could Thoughtseize here because I'm not guaranteed to scale Moonshadow up this turn or even the next turn. But the upside of getting this into play is pretty damn high. And here's where I'm going to miss having, removal in game one. That's pretty ideal, honestly. There's some tension here in casting this Thoughtseize, in that I want to disrupt my opponent, but in the hypothetical world where I look at an entire grip of artifacts, things can become very awkward quickly. I think I'm not pressured to cast the Thoughtseize immediately because it takes land, Lotus Petal plus Engineer to super punish me. And I have some decent options here. A lot of this sideboard is live in this matchup, honestly. I can go after creatures or go after graveyards or some combination thereof. That is an Urza's Saga. Is a skateboard. Skateboard can potentially be very scary with Urza's Saga. Skateboard can be welded into Great Furnace. So there are already Trixies online, and I do not hit another land drop, which is not great for me. I believe that I just bash in for 4 and do a post-combat Thoughtseize. I'm not feeling great about this situation. Fuck, it is Engineer. So Painter plus Grindstone is here. Goblet Engineer for the Sewer Valence Cam combo is also live. I think I am taking Goblin Engineer and hoping to rip Wasteland to answer Urza's Saga before it does its thing. Alright, there's Tarn. I'm slightly surprised that my opponent didn't weld Skateboard for Great Furnace at end of turn. I think I would have done that in their position. Puddle. There's Painter. And they are chilling. Douthie feels a little late. I will send in with my creatures. And I believe that my opponent just has Deterministic Lethal here. So you just float mana with Urza Saga, and then you go 3 mana, activate Grindstone. And my Douthie does not save me from this fate. I will concede to that. GG. No need to show our opponent our entire deck, although honestly, they probably have a pretty darn good idea of what I look like here. I'm probably going down some amount of this stuff for interaction. I'm fine with Bowmasters as a card that kills Goblin Welder. I'm fine with all of the Fatal Pushes and Feed the Swarms. That probably would give me these cards. I might be just afraid enough of the graveyard that I play either Leyline or Fairy. Could I play even further to the board by also playing Toxic Deluge? Maybe could. Don't know if that feels correct on Nethergoyf. Nethergoyf blocks pretty well versus random dumb things like Fable of the Mirrorbreaker tokens, though. So I don't know that I want to just cut all of those. Oh, that's an average looking hand. I hope that average is good enough. I think I just try to believe in Moonshadow. I don't know that I get Hatchery ticking up immediately here. I've boarded out the Death Shadows and also really want to point something that removes a land at Urza's Saga specifically in this matchup. I believe that playing a Douthie means that I don't have to Fatal Push Goblin Welder immediately. My Moonshadow is not doing numbers here. 19, excuse me. Okay, there's the Urza Saga that I hypothetically was talking about. There's another Moonshadow in Munchies. Having neither Moonshadow growing up because I have 5 lands is tough. That is an Abrade on the Douthie. So that will grow both of my Moonshadows. And that means that Welder is scarier. So with Welder being scarier, let's just take that out and send that to exile with a void counter in case that becomes relevant later. And yield to this. Opponent is down to 17, but is probably overall still favored. Land drop down to 16. Uh-oh. Are you going the painter route? You are going the ensnaring bridge route. That's the weirdo card that I talked about in the deck tech that I couldn't beat. Fuck. Spot seizing my opponent feels incredibly awkward. Well, I guess I will take the welder. Or do I take the moxite? Maybe I just take the moxite anyway. It feels like I have lost this game now. Because my opponent gets their artifact off of this, gets the bridge in play. Did I board out my... Yeah, this would be my way to beat Ensnaring Bridge. I guess I could have foreseen that and left some of those in. It is Grindstone. And the other welder gets to come down off the Mox Opal. I'll take this up. Yeah. Yeah. And pass. Well, I guess my opponent will put in the bridge so that I cannot attack. Yeah. I'm just going to do this so that I can shut my brain off during my opponent's turn. I can decide how long I want to try to stick this out. My opponent's hand was very redundant. Like, I fatal pushed, Douthied, and thought seized, and they just kept going and didn't miss a beat. Alright. Targeting Mox Opal. Alright. I guess if my opponent fucks up and draws too many cards, I can get some hits in. Like, they are up to 4 cards now. The downside being that they are up to 4 cards while I have 0. Down to 3. Grindstone. And that's going to be an engineer for painter. At this point, I'm fine tapping out. My opponent clearly has the win from here. GG, that one was not close. We got obliterated. My hand's not very good. I'm going to keep it. It's kind of a YOLO Shredder hand where I play Shredder on 1, bauble, try to redraw something reasonable, and hope that Super Shredder just grows to the point that it clocks my opponent. What do you think? 4 rounds of show and tell decks? Lotus Petal? We shred? Yeah? What you doing over there? The 1 ring. Got it. That might be good against my aggro deck. Just throwing it out there. Alright, upkeep. Take my redraw. Petal is pretty mid as a draw. There's opponent's petal. Ancient Tomb. Yeah. It sure seems like it is likely that this is 4 rounds of show and tell in this league. Although this could just be a mono blue combo deck as well. Doing things with coveted jewels or whatever. Alright. My hand could get a lot better here. Douthie is an okay draw. Probably better than casting Nethergoyf. I will go in for 4. Both of my creatures have evasion. That's the good news here. The bad news is that if my opponent just has their combo cards, I die. They don't have a lot of time, but they do have a 1 ring. So the 1 ring fogs them for a turn cycle. They do still just have 2 Ancient Tombs. It's devastating that I can't play this card. I will play the card that I can and pass. 1 ring does its thing. So this is effectively lethal. 4, 7, 8, plus 1, 9. Then that's not counting the Ancient Tomb damage. Basic Island. That is a Ponder. Shuffle. Looking good. Lotus Petal. Blue mana is open again. It's another ring. So the good news here is that one of those rings does go to exile. I could cast that right back if I wanted, which is not crazy. I think I just cast this one, though. It puts a lot of tension on these 3 permanents. So that is a Force of Will, meaning there is now a Force of Will for Douthie Voidwalker to cast, which is fine because Shredder and Nethergoyf are already lethal. Opponent takes 1. Tropical Island. I think that is my full 100% confirmation that my opponent is show and tell and not another different blue combo deck. It does also mean that Veil of Summer is a thing, which is very unfortunate. So I will Douthie, select Force of Will, attempt Force of Will. Opponent can't force back. They can Veil. My opponent's spell can't be countered. Shredder is already lethal. I already have a creature in my graveyard. I don't think I put anything in here. So this follow-up needs to be kind of crazy Because they are dead to their own One Ring, they're dead to their own Ancient Tomb, they are dead to these creatures. So they probably need like Emrakul and the One Ring, which is a lot to ask from my opponent's exactly 2 cards. They declined. That's Cunning Wish. Shared Summons can tutor Atraxa and Emrakul, but the Atraxa trigger has to hit a One Ring, and 2 of them are already accounted for. Yeah, the extra turn kills you. This is fine so far. It's Atraxa hitting the One Ring or a card that finds the One Ring that is a problem. Lorien Revealed. That's a great last card as the Unknown. Brainstorm. Stock up. Needle is tilting more and more towards I am dead. Alright, big moment. Here's the Atraxa. Oh, I didn't see those revealed. Show and Tell, Veil of Summer, and Island. Those don't feel good. Did they have the option to... No, they can't sink into Stupor their own One Ring there. Alright. So there's the One Ring draws. So incredibly close there. Now my opponent just wins by attacking me for this much in the air, and they don't die to the One Ring. I'm going to concede here. My opponent has got it. Literal 1 point. My opponent needed the Veil of Summer to protect their thing. GG. So, am I realistically getting a turn to answer the creature via Feed the Swarm in this matchup where my opponent is going more Omniscience heavy? I don't really know that I am on average. My opponents aren't attacking me, making the Death Shadows looking, making them look a little embarrassing. Alright, my opening hand is reasonable, but really needs to hit another land drop to catch its stride fully. I think despite the fact that Veil of Summer is a thing that I just lead on Moonshadow because scaling up this creature and hitting my next land drop matters a lot. I think I'm just into Moonshadow and Bauble and pass the turn and hope to do another Moonshadow and a Bauble and a, well, sorry, and a Thoughtseize on turn 2. Opponent on 6. Here we go. Moonshadow, Bauble, Bauble you. And we're, again, doing this mostly for the redraw, more so than anything else. I'm looking to hit a land in 2 draws. Misty Rainforest, and opponent is passing. I'm going Beatdown here. My Thoughtseize is pretty unlikely to work anyway, between the known force of Wet Veil and potentially a Veil of Summer as well. So I think I am just trying to race here. I can immediately cycle this to grow the Moonshadows. Land would be cool. Not land. Tell me something in your hand. I know about Force of Will. And now I know about a Dismember, which is potentially just going to take out my Moonshadow right now. Nope. This is target player's hand, right? Yeah, it is. On it taking actions in my second main. The hypothetical world where I had a slow-rolled Wasteland would be the greatest timeline for that as a punish. I don't have it, but it would be sweet. Bauble redraw. Oh, there were just not lands in the top portion of my deck. Uh-oh. Why did my opponent not Dismember? That costs 4 life to save 4 life, so it's net neutral, but I don't get to attack with that Moonshadow again. Was the Surveil that important? I don't know the rest of the hand. I only have 2 of the 7 pieces of information that my opponent has. Cycling a Lorien Revealed. There's my opponent's land drop. Okay, now I have another land. Now we're talking. I think I will go ahead and cast this first, and then do the Thoughtseize. Yeah. Feels bad. In for 7. Theoretical lethal on board, but my opponent has intentionally chosen not to interact with my stuff, which makes me think that I'm just going to die this turn. Okay, that's good for me. And the Dismember doesn't really save life anymore unless my opponent has black mana via a Lotus Petal. Alright, there's Ancient Tomb. Am I dead? We will find out. There's an Omniscience. I have exactly 6 permanents for Emrakul purposes. Dismember, played for free, does save life. I do have lethal through a Dismember. That is a second stock up. My opponent has now looked at 10 cards off the top of their library. Surely something bad is coming for me. Lorien revealed for 3 more cards. Yeah, there's the Emrakul. So that wipes my board and gives my opponent another turn. That is good enough for me to tap out here. So while we got this show and tell matchup a couple times in this league, again, this is not something that I really want to get paired against with the deck in its current configuration. GG. All right, let's go ahead and wrap this one up. Overall thoughts on the deck list. I don't really feel like this deck got to do the cool things the deck was capable of doing because our matchups were so fast. This was just 5 combo decks in a row. So the Eumidian Hatchery stuff never had time to get set up, and it was just clearly better to wasteland my opponent than to try to save my wastelands for my own lands. And Death Shadow, I don't think was ever really castable in the entire league. My opponents did not do any damage to me, I don't think. Well, in chunks of like 7 or 15 that were not super relevant for Death Shadow purposes. This card was totally fine to help round out the aggressive stuff, but I don't feel like the things that made this deck interesting got any chance at all to shine in this league because of how absolutely turbo this league was. And if we are expecting tons of Storm, Oops, and Show and Tell as major players in the league, this may just mean that this isn't the greatest. Maybe we can play some more discard out of the sideboard or some Disruptor Flutes or something to kind of help out with these matchups further. I feel pretty good about the graveyard-oriented matchups with Leyline and Fairy and Douthie Voidwalkers, but the stack-based ones don't necessarily feel the best. And Painter has enough pivot plans that I don't know that you go all in on Graveyard Hate versus them. Overall, the deck was fine. We had a 2-3 performance that was a hair's breadth away from being a 3-2 performance. But I felt like we were fighting uphill in those first couple of rounds where we did luck out and get the wins anyway. It is very hard for me to say whether or not we have the appropriate amount of removal, having played against no real traditional creature deck like a Dimir Tempo deck or an Izzet Tempo deck or something like that, or an energy deck. So I think this falls squarely into the more data is needed territory. Although it may just be trying to jump through hoops for Death Shadow doesn't make sense, given how quickly this deck just comes out of the gates in the first place. With that, I'm going to go ahead and call it a day. I hope this was enjoyable, despite the fact that it was just a combo fest today. All right, have a great rest of the day, folks. See ya!